It is 8 o'clock. You know what that means. It's time to interact with you on matters that affect you, affect your family, affect your community. Why? You know the drill, my brothers and sisters. It's topical. A very good evening to you, South Africa, and those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical. Control our digital audience, please. Put them up. They will be there. There they are. It's good to have them on the program. Again, it's just a reminder to our digital audience, if you have any questions for our guests or want to raise a comment, you can raise your virtual hand, and I'll do my very best to bring you into the conversation. Good to have them on the program. Now, I know you thought we were going to be at the Ndofire Mall, broadcasting live tonight. That was the plan as we reflect on the 2021 July unrest. But due to safety concerns on the ground, the decision was made to host the discussions here in Auckland Park. Shootings, 15 killed in Soweto, 4 in Pietermaritzburg, many others injured. What do we know? And what do we need to know? I'm going to get you those answers shortly. Listen, you're still going to get that same high quality exchange of ideas that we always strive to give you. Solutions driven. That's what It's Topical is all about. We bring in the people with the answers to the people who need the answers. Ndofire Mall was a scene of mass looting. It was ransacked a year ago. Sadly, lives are lost. Just one of the examples of violence that engulfed parts of Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. And we have since learned that 8,000 incidents were reported to police. At least 5,000 people were arrested. Over 2,435 cases are on the court roll. 50 cases finalized with a guilty verdict. Where does this leave us as a nation? Which leads us to our question of the week. Following the first anniversary of the 2021 July unrest, South Africa woke up to the news of multiple tavern shootings. The question is, we're asking you, now that we know this, what are the solutions? What are the solutions that we can find now in order to put paid to the unrest threats as well as tavern shootings? Please follow me. Send us your thoughts at It's Topical SABC. You can also give us a call. We'd love to interact with you via the telephone 011-714-5958. Does our country, in terms of the integrated assessments, intelligence assessments, coordinated assessments from the national security structures of this country, do we have that? That's what we're going to be discussing here tonight. 011-714-5958 is the number to dial. Now, time for your roundup. All right, I want to give you a sense of what's been trending here in South Africa, and basically, no surprises. Soweto. You get the drift. Obviously, what came in later is the big international stories as well. So that's what's been trending here in South Africa. Let me just minimize this for you. So South Africa woke up to a spate of multiple tavern shootings across the country. In Gauteng, 15 people have been declared dead after a shooting in the Nontsikelelo informal settlement in Soweto. It's believed that the perpetrators arrived at the tavern and shot indiscriminately. In KwaZulu-Natal, another tavern shooting left 4 people dead and 8 hospitalized in Sweetwater's Pietermaritzburg. It's believed a vehicle pulled up to the tavern and armed men jumped out and began shooting at patrons. We're also learning about the Eastern Cape. 2 people have been shot dead and 1 injured near Duncan Village in East London. And according to police there, 2 of the 3 people were found dead at Msamango Street with gunshot wounds to their upper bodies. Police say that the motive is still unclear. Let's listen.
13 people were shot and died on the scene at Nhlanhla Tavern. There were 10 people who were admitted in hospital. Since that report, 2 more people have died in hospital. There were no minors there. I want to convey our condolences to the families of the bereaved.
This is not happening for the first time. It is said that there is a polo going around with occupants shooting people. Last time we buried a man, of which we suspect that he was shot by the very same occupants who were on the polo. We are sad because we lost our children.
So what should we make of these mass shootings? I will engage the police shortly, but let's focus on the other topical issue of the past week. That is the first anniversary of the July unrest. Our producer, Tsile Kwasane, reminds us of the devastating effects of that consequential period in this country's history, which saw mass looting across KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng and hundreds of people losing their lives. Take a look.
Officers here are being overwhelmed by the number of people. As you can see, there are more people coming in. You know, it wasn't just the numbers that we saw earlier. It's just more and more people coming in.
These were the iconic scenes that came out of Soweto during the unrest and beamed across the world.
Kilometers away at Fire Mall, a different type of tragedy struck as a stampede claimed the lives of more than 10 people right here on these stairs.
Questions about who had instigated this chaos and why government had been caught napping were on everyone's lips.
Where we did not get the information was the fact that people were going to go into the malls and loot and do all of the things which happened at the malls. We did not have that information, at least on our side. And from what I am getting, even the police did not have that information. It is after the looting had begun that we got this information on social medias about roads which were going to be closed.
We did our job as state security. We collected information, we analyzed it, we packaged it for the client, and as I repeat, as you adequately reflect on what was said before, we gave it to the client. You would have listened to Minister Cele on the fact that intelligence was driving operations.
Many thanks to Tsile there. What we know and what we need to know. I want to get you some background, though, with regards to the unrest. I have a few clips to better illustrate my point. And this is from the report of the expert panel into the July 2021 civil unrest. And here we have the findings in front of us. It's general findings. And it says that police failed to stop the rioting and looting in July 2021. Reasons for this failure are complex, we're told. That's what the panel says, and sometimes not their making. We'll discuss this. In some instances, police did not get any intelligence upon which to plan their operations. There was a failure, we're told, by the intelligence structures to anticipate, respond adequately to the violence. I want to show you one of the next slides as well, and it talks to the recommendations that we have. And it goes in terms of government. It says government at all levels must seriously attend to the socio-economic challenges facing this country. Also, capacity of the security services needs to be strengthened to respond effectively to all situations. And the executive also needs to better coordinate and align itself. There's also one more as we go to the next slide. Let's put it up. The general recommendations goes on to say that the National Security Council must take the lead in the security of policy coordination, and that the internal contradictions within the ANC are impacting negatively on governance matters and needs to be resolved. So that in a nutshell is what the recommendations have to say. They are set out in full, by the way, in section 7 of the panel's report. If you wish to read it, it's there. But these are some of the key ones on the expert panel highlighted. Let's discuss, bringing the better minds onto the program. We have SAP's Johannesburg District Commissioner, Major General Max Masha. We also have the Gauteng Community Safety HOD, Nontsikelelo Sisulu, as well as Soweto Parliament leader Nhlanhla Lux Mohlauli. Thank you very much indeed for coming on. Important day, lots happening. We're going to get through as much as we can. I want to start with you, Major General. 15 dead in Soweto, 4 in Pietermaritzburg. We talk about Tavern deaths. Add the 21 in Inyobeni. Got about over 40 people dead, Tavern related, in a short space of time. Where are we failing as a nation?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this incident is a wake-up call to us as a nation. As you correctly pointed out, where have we failed? Our African idiom, they say it takes a village to raise a child. The children at the moment, largely, they are not really being led. They are left to TV to lead them. So we must go back and take responsibility to those children.
Talk about responsibility. What responsibility is police taking with regards to this? Because the concern coming from the ground, and I was watching for majority going to Soweto, going to Pietermaritzburg, is that the concern is that you are reactive, that you, police in general, rather than proactive. Fair point?
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say it's fair. Remember, let's use the Inyobeni example. There were children there of 13-year-olds that were in a tavern. Really, how do a parent allow the child to come home in the small hours of the morning?
But you were talking about Ubuntu, and we are who we are because of who we all are together as a community.
Exactly.
That includes police as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, but I was just bringing the society part. I'm coming to our part as the police officials. We are proactive, but we need the society as a whole to be part of us. We must work together. We must not work in isolation. I think the temptation to some people is to push everything to the police, to say the policemen are all the social ills of the society. And that cannot be. We need to work together. Like even as you were taking an example there earlier in your screenshot, it's a collaboration. It's all resources. But we as our party are enforcing the law. As you will know, for example, in Johannesburg or in Gauteng, we have Operation Topical, where we specifically are dealing with liquor outlets. I can tell you now, without fail, every week we are shutting down illegal bins. Unfortunately, this one of this morning, for example, is a legal one. And that's why we're saying, as a police, and I think our police commissioner, General Mawela, did recommend that let's look at the closing time of the shebins. Because if they're closing like 2 o'clock in the morning, what people they're doing there in the mornings, if they can close early, that can help us as well.
The one that happened in Pietermaritzburg, the shooting happened at 8:30 p.m. That was within, as far as we're concerned. But so there's still this issue. Even if it doesn't go beyond the time of legally opening, there's still this issue. I'm going to come back to you in a short while, sir. Ms. Sisulu, with regards to the partnership between police and the community, it's lacking. Would you agree?
There's a trust deficit indeed.
Why?
A couple of things. In part because we don't have enough law enforcement agencies on the ground. While there are those who are in college right now, a new intake, we certainly don't have enough. Whether you're looking at South African Police Service in the province, whether you're looking at Gauteng Traffic Police, whether you're looking at Metro combined, they're not. That's why we have community policing forums. That's why we're encouraging that we do have our patroller programs, and that we are having actually our own community members being active participants in actually helping us as a Department of Community Safety and SAPS in being eyes and ears within their own communities, because as a matter of fact, it's the community members who know what is actually happening on the ground.
Well, let's talk to some of the community members. Nhlanhla Lux, thrust in the spotlight during the unrest in defense, as you said, of township economy. Maponya Mall was where you were stationed. Talk to us about this trust deficit that stems in the community. How deep is it?
It's far deep. It hits the bottom of the ocean. I think for the sake of time, let's just keep everything frank and let me not explain too much. Key point, the police need to do better in not being caught into corruption. Drug dealers can't drug deal without the involvement of police. It's impossible. We see the events every day. We need to re-establish our relationships we need to re-establish our trust issues so that the young people that are growing can be conditioned better to trust the police. Because our parents and ourselves, we have reason, a lot of reason, not to trust the police instead of having reason to trust the police. So it's not a blame game here. The future of this country depends on the communities and the police, like the leadership is saying here, that we need to work together. But these old dogs will never. Too much trauma in our heads. As young as I am, too much trauma. So we need to visit the education system and make basics of policing part of our education system, and not only rely on college, because it also gives the civilian, the ordinary person, an understanding better on policing and what to do. Because our constitution, if I close it, our constitution does say that the ordinary person, citizen in South Africa, can help the police legally, constitutionally, and even perform a citizen's arrest. But we don't know how. You can ask anyone at home now. What's the procedure for citizen's arrest? What's the procedure for arresting someone that is deaf, that can't speak?
Is there such a thing in South Africa as a citizen's arrest, Major General?
It is, absolutely.
How does that work?
If somebody commits a crime in the presence of the community, they are allowed to effect an effective arrest.
What's the parameters? How does it, so what, you detain the person? Can you,
yes, you detain
handcuff the person? Or what's the parameters?
Yeah, no, you detain the person and call the police to come and then take over from where you left off.
So that's illegal.
Yes.
I want to talk a bit more about investigations and what Nhlanhla Lux has raised in terms of if there's a skills deficit within the police force. Just a reminder, digital audience, if you want to raise any questions to our guests, please put your virtual hand up. I'm going to get to you as soon as you do that. It's been a year now, and the people that are responsible for the July unrest, I understand that the Directorate of Priority Crime Investigations is investigating 8 people. 8 people were arrested in terms of public incitement of public to commit public violence. It's been a year now. What are we still investigating?
Yeah, well, it depends on which level you are referring to. We have other people that we have arrested for public violence. Okay, those that were acting on the day that we have arrested, I think we arrested about 700 something people that we have arrested. Those then that are investigated by DPCI, obviously they are the one to respond to. But you see, our challenge that we have, as you know, that our courts need all the evidence. It didn't help us just to rush to take people to court and to be acquitted. It will put an egg on the face of the law enforcement. So I'm sure wherever they are doing their best to get the right information. That by the time we place it on the court roll, we have a case that the people must answer to.
Let's bring in one of our digital audience members, Bongenkosi Kanyile. Sir, thank you for joining us. You were arrested with regards to the unrest. You did, I'm quoting you in media reports, saying that you didn't want to be a scapegoat for the July riots. Talk to us about what do you think was driving the unrest there?
Thank you very much. Greetings to everyone in the studios and greetings to the viewers at home. Indeed, I'm coming to you live and direct here in my car. So, you know what happened? The state was looking for a scapegoat. The only reason there is not even a single person languishing in jail today, it's because there's no evidence. Myself, nobody saw me carrying a rice. I never took a rice. I never bent a mall. They arrest me because they saw me addressing some people. In the days which are not related to an unrest, they arrested Piti for tweeting. You say a person who tweets is responsible for an unrest. They arrested Ngizwe, a person who's engaged in comedian and television and other media staffs. The people who were actually on the ground, looting, destroying property, even till today, not even a single person has faced the music. So currently the scheme we have in South Africa is a question of the lack of intelligence within the intelligence system and the lack of policing system that we have in this country. That is why now there's no one languishing in prison. And I can tell you, my brother, if we continue like this in this country, something is looming. And when that thing happens, they will look for scapegoats and not deal with the problem directly.
Well, let's bring in Ms. Sisulu with regards to you involved with community safety. How do you respond to Mr. Kanyile talking about a lack of intelligence in this country?
Look, let me just acknowledge his frustration, one, in terms of being, as he would say, being arrested allegedly for not being part of the scene that he is talking about, perhaps the looting of rice or not. So one does understand that the wrongful arrests do happen. That's one. That there is a lot of frustration amongst community members. But in terms of the lack of intelligence-based gathering of information and arrests, it is true. It is acknowledged in the report, and we do acknowledge, even as Gauteng, that we do need to do better in terms of our intelligence gathering, and given that fact, it's not a matter of saying you acknowledge that, now what? We've already brought on board private sector to work with us. We are
and that has happened over the last year since this report came out?
It's actually work that has been ongoing. We just have now decided, because of not just because of the unrest, but in reviewing, we've also ensured that we are beginning to accelerate and increase the number of partnerships that we're bringing on board. But also joint law enforcement has been a way of working, but we're really making sure that we're strengthening that and making that when the Major General talked about Ukai Molau, it's just but one of those operations that we have around joint law enforcement. So intelligence-based law enforcement is really the basics of what we need to do in order for us to get the right information. Because, by the way, as SAPS members are allowed to have 3 informers registered. Right, the trust deficit issue, of course, compromises us, and we do acknowledge that, and that's why people will not.
So you don't trust, you don't inform.
So you don't. So part of our work as the Department of Community Safety is to build those community. Those relations between the community and the police, and it's an ongoing work, and of course it's going to take a while, just like building a nation, which is what we're trying to do right now.
Should it take a while, Nhlanhla? What can speed up the process? Because you would admit we need to speed this up. I mean, over 8,000 incidents were reported to police, 5,000 arrests. If you whittle that down, there's about 2,435 cases on the roll, but 50 of those are guilty. Talk to us. I remember the president described in August last year that this was a orchestrated campaign of public violence destruction. Do you still see it that way from a community point of view a year later?
Look, it's always orchestrated. I agree with the president. And why? Because if there's an outside force influencing internal affairs, economically or otherwise, even socially, it's orchestrated, it's planned, because it doesn't come from within. But from within, we can understand maybe it's frustrations, maybe it's organic, maybe, but it's nothing like that, because we were there. We're the people fighting against the looters. So we saw the process unfolding firsthand. We know that it's not intelligence of the people in our communities. There is no one in our community right now who has it in mind that let me go and loot Maponya Mall and compromise 5,000 jobs of our own people who work in. No. No one can ever think like that. So it is orchestrated, certainly.
I remember when you were talking to the president last year, you used the phrase invincible forces that were part of the community and infiltrated not only the community, but the mindset of community. What forces are you talking about here?
Look, they remain invincible because we need to remain responsible with our words, regardless of how angry we are. So we need to respect that. I mean, until someone is put before a court of law and is found guilty, then we say that the enemy we can characterize the enemy now. But the enemy is formless. We can't say the enemy speaks Sotho or Zulu or English or is from Eldos or Soweto. No. Until we catch the enemy. And those processes are not my responsibility that I must put in place. My responsibility is to defend against whatever the forces are that has proven to be far greater than that of the policing in our area. That's why we as the ordinary people of the community had to stand and work with the police to defeat this invincible enemy.
If you had information over this last year, did you report it to the police about these forces?
No. So I only experienced the forces in the moment. So these are not forces that I can interact with. I can't even say I can visit their Facebook page, but we know the patterns. We live in our communities. We know when 4 a.m. what the traffic is like. We know what's going on at 6 p.m. We know during winter that there should be fire chimneys, blowing smoke. I'm making an example. But when you don't see that, then you know there's a problem. And when you interrogate it, because the data moves quick, because it's my community, I know the intelligence around every corner, then I see there is a real problem. And then we come as community to address the problem for what it actually is at that particular point in time.
011-714-5958 is the number to dial. Please give us a call if you want to jump into this conversation. I'll bring in our digital audience now to get their take. Pilile Gwala is joining us. Talk to us about your take with regards to where does the solutions lie. We had shootings at taverns, the Unrest anniversary. What's your take?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. When you look at the issues that are happening, in this country, I really feel like they are pointing to serious socio-economic challenges that we are currently facing. And I'd like to agree with Nontsikelelo with the point that she raised earlier of involving the community more, because I think that we need to have a different approach to governance, because clearly there is a crisis of governance in this country. It's been spoken about so many times. And when you really look at the report, the expert report and the July unrest, there's so many issues that point to government failure, state security, insufficiency in their job. And just all of those issues, essentially, I really feel like at the core of it, there is a crisis of governance. And I think that needs to be fixed, because the socio-economic challenges that everyday South Africans are facing, they haven't been resolved. There's still high levels of unemployment in this country, and the situations in which led, to these issues that we saw have not been resolved. And there's so many issues, like one of the speakers has spoken, actually the question that you posed of where are the arrests? Where are the people that perpetuated these situations? Where are they? And we haven't really seen a great change or, the arrests being made. And so there are issues also of impunity, where sometimes it is seen as though people that do wrong in this country actually get away with it. So there's a loss of trust in our governance, and really all these issues are perpetuating fear that South Africa is becoming a failed state. And so those are the issues that I think will need to be really looked at. I mean, we have the ANC that is really divided amongst itself, and essentially those issues also come into play. And I think that moving forward, we really need to, have the ANC rather just have a strategy, really in how to deal with these challenges. I mean, as a political party, with the factions issues that they're experiencing. But my point really is just, we have a crisis of governance in this country, and it is time that it gets, taken seriously, because we are going to see another, unrest if things do not change.
Hlengiwe, then Bongenkosi. Hlengiwe, to you first. You have your hand up.
Yes, good evening to everyone. This issue of the unrest which took place last year, yes, we're trying to come up with so many different solutions to the problem. But the question is, do we know what led to the arrest that took place last year? Maybe it is about time that first we visit and we go back to say what really caused this unrest, those factors that led to the unrest to take place, what are they? Because I believe before we can go to seek solutions, we must know the core problem. If maybe we first attend to the main problem, what is it that is causing this? Then it will be easy for us to find the solution to the problem. Because looking at what led to the unrest which took place last year, there are so many factors, and I believe if those factors they were to be thoroughly attended to, if those problems they were to be solved, there is no way that unrest would have taken place. For example, people were looting because maybe they are not having employment, they've got no jobs. Because if it was someone who is busy and who is employed, they wouldn't be having that time to go out and loot. Maybe people they are feeling the pressure that COVID-19 brought to them, So I'm trying to bring this issue that let us first attend to the main cause of the unrest. What led to that? What are the factors that caused that? If we try to attend to them, surely the solutions will be and can be provided at the end of the day. Because if we leave the causes of that, there's no way that we're going to come up with solutions. So I'm trying to say, all of us as a country, all of us as different communities, let us come together. Let us have trucks such as this one. Let us address what is causing this. If it is issue of unemployment, what can we do? What can companies do? What can the government do? What can our leaders do in order to solve it?
Isn't it?
Because if we don't attend to those issues, we're going to have a problem in the future. There is a greater chance that what happened last year can still happen again.
All right, I know I need to take a break, but Bongo Nkosi, before you lose your train of thought, jump in here and then we'll take a quick break.
Let me assist the panel and the viewers at home. What led to an unrest? It was the questionable arrest of Jacob Zuma. What led to an unrest? The people were starving because of COVID. They were at home. And the Zuma's arrest became a spark. It enabled people to go and loot. I'm telling you, if Nhlanhla Lux and his people were in KZN trying to stop the looters, they were going to see flame. Because the issue of Zuma was closer to the hearts of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. The looting, it was so destructive that even the police, they ended up joining a fight, ended up joining the looting itself. Because it was highly concentrated there, of course, with the issue of Zuma. So the issue of Zuma became a spark, and that spark, when other people came out and joined that looting, it's because of the conditions which came with COVID-19.
I know.
Let me tell you, in this country, another incident that happened in July, it's going to take place. If the things continue like this, if the petrol continues to be this high, if the bread continues to be this high, if the load shedding continues to be this high, it is going to happen now on a national scale. All of you there as a panel will say I'm a prophet when it happens. And you will go around looking for external forces and create all conspiracy theories. While the problem was brewing, no leaders go and attend to these issues which we're currently faced with.
Look, I know I'm going to get wrapped on the knuckles for not taking this break, but I need to bring in you, Nhlanhla, to respond to that, please.
Look, I respect Bongo Nkosi with everything I have. He's a courageous young man. And I do personally think that if it was my duty to go to KZN, a community that I do not grow up in, a community that I'm currently not connected to, I have very little influence in what the people will do and behave, especially emotionally. But in my own community, who says that the forces of KZN were not the forces of Gauteng? Unless you know better. But you see, I'm not attacking him. I'm saying in my community, I will master the data, the intelligence, and everything that's to do with my community. And that's why I represent and I stand and I know I can back up anything that happens in Soweto. So I'm not here to save the country or the continent. I'm here for Soweto because it's a community that I'm plugged into. If the police want to know how many people steal cars, you better ask me, I can tell you. How many people save other people, I'll tell you. Good and bad, yin and yang, Soweto. Listen, Soweto, I can tell you, and that's why we were victorious over that looting force, and that's why we're still here talking to you.
All right, lots to discuss. I want to bring in police as well, community department, digital audience here, and Nhlanhla Lux. Quick break, more next. Welcome back. We're talking about two topical issues: the deaths at taverns, as well as the anniversary of the July unrest. Let's bring in the views of ordinary citizens about the 2021 July unrest. By now, you know that this show gives you, the ordinary citizens, a voice. This is the Word on the Street feature for this week.
A year later, do you think the July unrest were justifiable? For them to just go looting and all that, it was not okay. So they ruined the whole thing, they ruined buildings, the very same buildings that they are expecting work from.
Some big businesses were affected from people looting. They looted a lot of goods, they looted your furniture, your food, and it affected our economy. It's because of poverty and the unemployment rates. Asisebenzi, asinamali, namanje izinto ziyadura yabo, and ayishimpile iya ngokuya yabo, iba nzima more and more, mara abantu abasiphethe baba nemali.
July unrest looting asinto right, because batho ba lusitse mebereko, ba lusitse le maphelo a bona, o recover go nkana.
Na ke bona hantle hore ntwe e paleditse ke taba ya 350 je sengwe ja kena ka nako.
It impacted me very, very negatively because me, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a deal with my local supplier. I'm a supermarket with consignment stock, meaning bathathe stock without paying.
Ezivege mbili zera rodzura nduni rari kitogara toga na burotho ngauri looting yo dari na zvitoko zva sina richilata. Vana vatoga zviliwa, vana vatoga dzichededzo ya zvikoloni. Zvino zvithu zvezvo zvo ripfisa nga manda ubava realivu.
All right, that's your opinion. It helps, though, to hear it because it helps shape the strategy going forward. I want to bring in our guest, SABC Johannesburg District Commissioner Major General Masha is here, Gauteng Community Safety HOD, Nontsikelelo Sisulu, as well as Soweto Parliament Leader Nhlanhla Lux Mohlauli. Major General, with regards to how some describe it as a convergence of criminal conduct with mainstream politics, do law enforcement know how to handle this?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me start off by saying the issue of the trust that the police are experiencing at the moment. And somebody did say earlier on that the cause of the unrest was the socio-economic. That end up being security issues which are not security issues. You know, if there's no electricity, somehow it end up being a police issue. If there's no water, some end up being. So the police, because they have to answer to some of those things, they end up now paying the price by feeling like they are the ones who are in the way and we are not. We're just making sure that there's a law and order so that all these things can be addressed. That's what we are trying to do. Now, yes, we are trained, but remember, our duty is to respond to the crime at hand, not necessarily to address. We have our way, or that's where we come in terms of addressing the root causes, but we have only a role to play, but we need everybody to collaborate so that we can be able to address those convergences that you're talking about, so that we can address.
But the pushback would be, and many community members have raised this, is that you're responding because you're not being proactive. Simple example, patrols, more patrols around hotspots or just general community. If that is done, then you don't have to respond to what might have happened afterwards. Do you lack capacity in many regions?
Yeah. Remember the best way, and I like what you said earlier. If we have the community working with us, it become our eyes and ears. Because, you know, even if we can have 100 cars, they can't be able to be in every street. It's not going to work. You understand? So we need the community to help us to be there. We have our resources. Yes, here and there we have our own challenges, but by and large, we are patrolling, we are visible. But the main thing is that the working together with the community for us is the number one thing. That is why, for example, as Gauteng, we have now said, for example, every Wednesday is a stakeholder engagement. Now you say to the community, come, let's talk. Tell us our blind spot, like you said. Where are we not doing it so that we can do it? And then we can also tell you where you can meet us halfway. So together we can magnify this visibility, because us alone will not be effective.
The public order policing, very important in order to have them in every police station. The expert panel said that it wasn't in every police station. It was very centralized. The Justice Cluster briefing the other day spoke about, I think it was 4,000 more that will be added to the unit. How vital is that? Are you seeing any difference in terms of the various police stations that need to react to this?
Look, we in Gauteng right now have at least 40 to 55 police stations that you would say are your hotspots police stations, right? So when you say every single police station would need to have, we have 146 police stations. So you would have to contextualize it. So because some areas are actually working well, communities are working well, neighborhood watches are working well, community policing forums are working well together with the communities. So we can't negate the communities that are actually working. So you have to focus on the hotspots so that you can begin to get those under control. And once you are able to do that, you are then able to stabilize more communities. So when you look at 146 police stations and you have 40, according to SAP's statistics, and I'll say, and then of course you heard me say 55, because as the Department of Community Safety, we have a monitoring role. So when we monitor the police, based on what the police will say they are doing, and they say we have 40 police stations that are not performing well, but when we monitor, we'll say, based on our data and our monitoring of your work, we have an additional number of police stations that we think can do better. But I actually want to also go back to the issue of the psychosocial, the framing of where our mindsets are as South Africans. And we must not negate or put aside what Ngozi said. We have triggers as a people.
Yeah.
We have triggers as people in our own psychosocial setups, right? And in our beings. We are a nation that has come from a past that has not been completely healed, and it's generational. The impacts of it have been generational. And when he says it was the questionable arrest that triggered the unrest of July, it goes right back to say when people were arrested and people don't want to draw the link and refused to draw the linkages of the collective violence and the effects of apartheid and how many generations into our nation that has had. I may be fourth generation, Lux, you might, boy, I'm sure you're younger than me, bruh. He might be fifth generation in. Ngozi, looking at him, might be young, right? I don't know. He might be young, right? But he might be fifth generation in. But those effects and the trigger he speaks of is as real as the trigger that was there in 1976. Right. So we cannot negate those triggers that bring about that collective violence or that collective looting, if you will.
I hear you with regards to the psychosocial aspect of what happens, how it manifests, given this. I want to bring in Nhlanhla with regards to what Ngozi said about these triggers. Does it resonate with you in terms of the arrest? Did it resonate within the community? Was that a driving force in terms of what people did here in Gauteng?
Look, there's a national agenda, and then there's people who take advantage of an existing national agenda. If you go to the deep corners of Northwest, where people speak fluent Tswana, and Tswana is the first language more than English, and you ask them, what's your analysis on the unrest? They have no clue what you're talking about. They can't feel the depth of the political reasoning because they're not central to it. But if you're saying you come from KZN, like he's amazingly said, you are then Zulu, you are then cultural, you are then connected, you then can reason with what has been presented to you to say, Jacob Zuma, so we are all going mad. So that will be strong in one province but diluted in another and completely absent in another. So in my community, the people were looting for the social ills that they have to live with on a daily basis, more than what has been presented as the political reason of why the looting happened.
I want to bring in our digital audience. Mxolisi is here with us. Mxolisi, I understand, is from the Fire Mall. We were supposed to be with you, sir, tonight. The situation on the ground dictated otherwise due to security reasons. You went through this firsthand. You saw the people looting your mall. People died where you, I understand, about 10 in a stampede. What was it like being there, and what lessons have you learned? If you can unmute Mxolisi. All right, Mxolisi, if you can hear me, please could you unmute? In the meantime, let's bring in Dr. Sibusiso Nxumalo. Dr. Sibusiso Nxumalo, talk to us about your experience and some of the lessons that we can learn from this unrest.
Okay, to get that out.
Hello? If you can unmute Dr. Nxumalo. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So what we learned from the unrest is that surely it had to have been politically motivated. We saw, should I say, it could have been also motivated by, as Ubong Ginkos has alluded, by the unrest of President Jacob Zuma, but also the suffering of the current reality of people that are suffering on the ground. I mean, during that time, it was very difficult. We saw the social relief grants being cut off, that whole pressure, and during that time, people reacted in a way that sort of tried to make the country seem ungovernable. I mean, the ratio as well of police between one police against many people is not realistic in our country. So police could not have been able to stop. That unrest was equivalent to, should I say, a first stage revolution. Thank you.
Khaleesi, if you can unmute, I want to get to your take very quickly. What was it like being there, witnessing this? Khaleesi, last chance, sir. All right, we're going to come back to you. I just want to take Anga, if you can hear us, let's get your thoughts. We haven't spoken to you. Anga, talk to us about what you have learned, and now waking up this morning to hearing that 15 people dead in Soweto, 4 in Pietermaritzburg, how it ties into the unrest. Obviously, I'm not drawing links, but you sitting and watching the news, what was running through your mind?
Greetings to all. I think the community is very angry, and with that being said, they are retaliating in such ways. They are now making sure that the government feels what they are feeling.
Yeah.
Also, it's clear to see that people are very frustrated with the situation of living in South Africa. People wouldn't be killing each other, and people wouldn't be looting if they were fine and had employment and efficient funds to do what they wanted to do. It is clear that people are very frustrated and are very they're angry with the situation in South Africa.
All right.
And that they are retaliating in ways that are going to, in a few months' time, hurt the economy. Thank you.
So it goes back to talking about the socio-economic effects of what has happened. I understand that we have Seth Mazibuko as well with us, an activist. I'm told we just lost him. Okay, let's just continue our conversation. I want to talk more about the triggers, but also the practicality on the ground. Nhlanhla, with regards to high caliber weapons, there's been this concern that there's this in use. It is within communities. Is that the reality on the ground from your end? You've got your ears to the ground. Is that the reality on the ground?
1,000,000%. We've got a problem of people that are unidentifiable with high caliber weapons, AK-47s, R5, R4. I was one of the people that got shot at, and it was with an AK-47. One of my guys hit the ground and cold. We buried him. We moved on. I can give you cases after cases in Soweto where high caliber weapons get used against South Africans. And for me, it's just a pity, and it's just a problem that we can politicize the problem. But we not like Bongosi is saying. We mustn't run away too much from what the problem is. Let's face the problem for what it is. Let's look at this uniform, for example. Who respects this uniform in South Africa? Who stands up and takes their cap off because the authority is walking in? Absolutely no one, including me and you. We've been conditioned to understanding that this uniform, even social media shows us, with a gun, you can slap a policeman. That's how it's normalized. That nonsense behavior is normalized. Go to our neighboring countries. Go to Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia. You can go to Swaziland. Let an official walk in your direction. No gun, no nothing. She is the authority. Our problem here is that we think the small things don't matter. There is no consciousness or conscientizing our young people to respecting this uniform. This uniform doesn't need a gun for you to be put in line. But now we have been taught, and like she's saying correctly, that we inherit nonsense. I would rather not be on the streets, I would rather be competing with space technology, or going to Jupiter where people have never been, or whatever the case may be. I do not want to repeat what my grandmother did. I am now repeating what my mother did. So 5 generations, we're doing the same thing. We are on the streets. At some point it must end. And the only time it ends, if I close it, is if we realize that the biggest problem of this country remains to be the politicians. The politicians are in government. So once you hold government accountable, that means you're holding the politicians accountable. Now it's the time that young people that are qualified, they must be taken into government to lead government. Allow the politicians to continue their games of politicking. But in terms of governance, allow this country to be taken over by qualified young people.
You said earlier on that the politicians are the biggest sellouts.
Yes.
But is there over-reliance of what a politician can do for us as opposed to what a community can do for themselves?
Yes, there is an over-reliance, 100%. And that over-reliance is something that we are all fed by the politicians. There's something that happens, we'll solve it. There's something, and over the years, welfare discourages the will of the poor. We all now bear kids and raise kids that think the systems will raise them and the cops will come and save them. Reality check, no one is coming to save your community. It's your responsibility as the community, as the ordinary people, to make sure you've got systems in place. Before, they used to have things called SDU. I'm sure he was part of the SDU systems. Those are self-defense units of the community. You know your community better. No Superman is coming from the sky to come and save you. You make sure you put measures in place and you save your own community and guarantee the security for the women and children and everyone else that's vulnerable.
Major General, do you feel disrespected?
In many instances, our members of abuse is very right. It's amazing and it's shocking how some members of the community will even raise their hands against our own members. And our members, in terms of trying to enforce human rights, try not to maybe overcompensate the violence and then seem to be not being forceful. So there is that element that some of our members of the community are not respecting the police. And all we're asking, I agree, let people respect the police once more.
I'm going to come back to that point. I want to bring in some tweets. We asked you to send us your thoughts with regards to possible solutions. Let's put it up if we have it and see what you have to say in this regard. Let's put up the big screen. I can't even see. Oh, there we go. All right. Mab says maximum resources after the effect. When is SA going to be active and not reactive? Kande says this is a serious issue of crime. South African government must take action without any concern. Peace to the deceased. This one says in the space of less than a month, 36 people have died in binges. Ramaphosa, step up and stop these sudden deaths. Symbology. South Africa's deep-rooted culture of violence is out of control. They even have mass shootings in South Africa. A few weeks ago, many children died in the Tavern under mysterious conditions. Now these mass shootings. We appreciate your thoughts at It's Topical SABC. Major General, with regards to eradicating these high-caliber firearms in community, illegal firearms, what is happening? Because I was listening to Gun Free South Africa earlier on saying that there's this amendment on the table in order to reduce the availability of guns. Is that the quick and fast way in order to put paid to this?
It plays a big role, there's no question about it. But once again, like I said before, who is carrying those guns? It's our neighbors, it's our mothers, it's our brothers. If the community can say no to these big guns and make sure that you know before they happen, it will prevent a lot of all these things. But people, like now, for example, let me give you a typical example, where we were today. We ask people what happened. A lot of people say they don't know. They only talk about the white Kentam. So the more the people can come forward, the more we can disempower the criminals. Remember what I said earlier? Some of the things that people do where they want to push everything to the police and not being participating in these efforts, give criminals enough room to play. But the more all of us can stand up and rise up, there will be less space for criminals to play around.
I think final word to you, Mrs. Sulu. Let's wrap up.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that it's important that, that we prevent crime, right? If there's a carjacking, A car is not a teaspoon. You don't put it in your pocket. It doesn't suddenly arrive in your community and you don't know about it. You see it. So be a proactive citizen. This is the country we have. We have a responsibility as citizens first. Government has a greater responsibility, but we as citizens have a primary responsibility because we are in community, we live in community, and we wake up in community, we go back to community, and therefore we raise our children in community, and we have that responsibility. But as government, we shoulder the greater responsibility. So in that sense, the issues of inequality and poverty and unemployment have to be addressed through various mechanisms that government has put in place, but they have to be accessible to our youth in particular, who are actually the ones who are mostly imprisoned right now, and as well as our women and persons with disabilities. But at the core of it, we have to be active citizens for our own country.
Lux, talk to us about, let's give you the final word. I've got a minute left. What's the way forward here?
Look, the way forward is for everyone to develop a new attitude for the education system to start producing a future adult of South Africa that will make sense to the economy and every other aspect of our communities. And how we also do that, and to sustain what I'm saying, is that we need to understand that it's time to decentralize power. We can't have someone called a politician taking decisions and imposing leadership and decision over every community. We need to allow the communities to lead themselves. There's some people who understand their problems and have solutions to the problems, but they don't have the resources for those problems. Elders, for example, we are talking about a colored community predominantly. They know what the problems are, but they're not within the position to solve the problem. They now are conditioned and set up to rely on someone in government or parliament to take a decision for the future of their kids. Allow these parents to raise their own kids, and the systems must just move aside.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Digital audience, as always, pleasure having you on the program. Here's my take. The consequences of every act are included in the act itself. George Orwell, days of violence and looting, leaving in its wake destruction and death. What lessons can we learn? Definitely animus can't be an agent for good change. We have to work together despite our political affiliations, despite our race, despite our religion, for the collective good of our nation. But perhaps the biggest lesson we can learn from the unrest is that when you take the triple threat of poverty, inequality, and unemployment and mix it with hot button issues, be it political or otherwise, you have a recipe for disaster. Sort out the triple threat and you might just lessen the risk. The news continues. Stand by for the Globe. Until next week, take care. Bye-bye.